Ah, can you hear us now? Yep, there we go. Okay. Senior, you are coming over. Are a couple people. A couple people. I don't know if you want to try to.
Be out here.
Stand there, that way, kind of in the view, and there we go.
They are.
Okay.
All right, so my name is Serena Rotondo, and I am one of the emergency management coordinators for the West Pierce Emergency Management Coalition.
And I'm Nathan Johnson, another emergency management coordinator with the West Pierce Emergency Management Coalition.
So history of the coalition, it started in 2010 with a partnership between Lakewood and West Pierce Fire and Rescue for emergency management services. And then in 2020, the city of University Place joined, and in 2022, the town of Silicon joined the coalition. We have an interlocal agreement that goes over roles and responsibilities between all three jurisdictions and West Pierce Fire and Rescue. And then discusses the cost share formula, so how that is broken down. The town of Silicon, City of University Place, and Lakewood utilize their EMPG grants to fund our positions, and then West Pierce Fire and Rescue covers the rest of the cost. And then whatever is left from that is broken up between Lakewood, Silicon, and University Place based on population.
I'll be back, sorry.
And then again, that ILA just defines how we would operate in an emergency situation or large incident.
So kind of the structure of personnel within the coalition, we have two emergency management coordinators who report directly to Deputy Chief McCurdy. Outside of that, each jurisdiction, Silicon, University Place, and Lakewood all have a representative for their jurisdiction. Specific to emergency management. So we meet with them on a monthly basis to ensure the work that we are doing is representative of the work that they think that needs to be done for their jurisdiction and aligns with the strategy and goals for the year. Outside of that, we meet with the policy group. Again, these are the town administrators, city administrators, and a fire chief. We do that again twice a year. And that's where we present our yearly operational plan and kind of our strategies to what we hope to accomplish and we'll be working on throughout that year. Get feedback again to make sure that the work we're doing is in alignment with the jurisdiction's thoughts as well. And then outside of that, we really make sure that we're representing not only the fire department, but each of the jurisdictions and any county level thing that happens, which we'll talk about some of the plans that are ongoing with Pierce County Office of Emergency Management later on. Next slide. So kind of where does the coalition fit in the big picture of emergency management? There's a few different levels we have. Again, each of the jurisdictions are part of the West Pierce Emergency Management Coalition. We then go to Pierce County Department of Emergency Management. We're very coordinated with them, work well together. Outside of that, anything would go towards Washington State Department of Emergency Management, and then that would go to FEMA. So that's kind of the levels of the tiered response structure. Start local here, and it goes all the way up to federal level. Next slide.
And so we want to talk to you guys kind of about what we've been doing, what some of our big projects are. One of our big projects has been the West Pierce Emergency Management Coalition website. So it's at westpierceemergency.org. On this website, it features all of the social medias from each jurisdiction and then West Pierce Fire and Rescue. That's been a big point for us because not all citizens have social media. So when we're updating, for example, the Fort Silicon fire, social media was being updated quite a bit. So citizens that didn't have social media may not have been getting that information. With the website, we can utilize that space to go there and monitor social media content. It's just a centralized place for our emergency management information. So on there we have our hazards listed and some topics like that. And then one of the things that is really cool is that this can also be updated real time during an emergency. So when you go on the website, there's a large banner at the top that kind of draws your attention to it. Right now we're using that to utilize alert signups for code red for each jurisdiction. But in an emergency, that can easily be changed. And then with the website, it can also be translated, so we can reach our limited English proficiency folks within each jurisdiction. And when they go here, they can easily get that information, in a way that makes sense for all of our citizens in, the town of Steilacoom, University of Lakewood. So 2023 recap of what we did last year. Last year, starting December 2022 and into January of 2023, we had the King Tide incident in University Place. With that, we were able to respond by getting sandbags for the residents there. We utilized our community emergency response team folks from West Pierce to fill those sandbags and help them load into the trucks. And then we were able to get that to the citizens on Day Island and Sunset Beach. That way they could be prepared for those King Tide floods. We also did comprehensive emergency management plan training. So with our coalition, we have one comprehensive emergency management plan. We hosted trainings in 2023 that brought together Lakewood, University Place, Steilacoom, and West Pierce staff. And we trained on that plan, what it looks like and what each section in that plan is, but everybody had a good awareness of what was in there. We started disaster rally area training for the Steilacoom staff. So we started with Public Works and we talked about what it looks like right after an incident happens, what communication looks like, how they would report to their department, and then how they would start windshield surveys. So going out into the town of Steilacoom and doing assessments on damage. We also did continuity of operations training. So each city and West Pierce Fire and Rescue has a continuity of operations plan. So how essential functions would continue to function after an emergency. We did training on that. We did storm ready applications for Lakewood and University Place. That was a process that we worked on with the National Weather Service. And then with each city to make sure that they were storm ready, that they hit everything that they needed to for that application. And in 2023, we completed that project. We started doing incident action plans for large events. So with emergency management, we wanted to make sure that we weren't just doing trainings for an incident that happened, but also planned events. So we utilized Summerfest, Duck Days, which are the other ones? The
Christmas tree lighting for University Place. And then there was a large event at Chambers Bay, Tacoma Arts Live held multi-day music festival.
And so in that IAP, we utilized the ICS forms. I kind of sat down with city staff and went through those forms so that they could work through putting together an incident action plan. That way, in the event of a large incident, they're already used to those forms and what that looks like.
And to just tag on to that, the purpose behind the incident action plan is recognizing if something happens at a large event, there's going to be multiple agencies involved in that process, from the event organizers to the city to law, fire, and we want to make sure that we're all communicating ahead of time and we know who's in charge of what some of those evacuation routes may be, where the helicopter landing zone may be, what some of law enforcement's specific responsibilities as well as fire, and how that all comes together. I'd like to have that conversation ahead of time when we create this document, and that can then get pushed out to not only the crews that and staff that are working that event that day, but crews that may be working in the community that day and maybe get responding in. It also gets pushed to some of our local partners. So our hospitals usually get one, Pierce County Department of Emergency Management, and our healthcare or our health department also gets one. In case, again, the event happens, it grows, and we need to pull those partners in, they at least have some situational awareness of what that event is and who some of those players are ahead of time.
In Aurora, you report to the Emergency Operations Center, and which one?
So we haven't activated an emergency operations center for an event outside of Summerfest and the air show. Lakewood did stand up Emergency Operations Center. Want to talk about that?
Yeah, so Lakewood stood up their emergency operations center, for Summerfest because JV had the air show. So we reported here and set up. In the case of an actual emergency or a large event, it would depend on which jurisdiction that event is taking place in. And that is the Emergency Operations Center or the Department Operations Center if West Pierce was setting up. Once the incident starts to span multiple jurisdictions, then we would set up the Coalition Emergency Operations Center, and that would be held here at.
And to tag along, if we stand up an Emergency Operations Center, most likely the county will be standing up theirs. And we would just be working in a very coordinated fashion with them.
And then wildfire response, we did have the Fort Steilacoom fire, which led to a more significant emergency management response that Nathan and I were part of, and I think we're gonna talk about that next.
So one of the big things we're really focused on is constantly evaluating, learning, and improving, whether that's from discussions we have with partners, exercises we run, or real life scenarios. Over the summer, we had a couple scenarios that really brought some things to the forefront, and we were able to make some changes and then deploy those changes shortly after those were made real time. So August 4th was the Jamestown fire in Lakewood. This was again a brush fire that ended up burning up a few mobile homes. One of the things about this was emergency management was not involved in this. First responder agencies really were able to take care of what needed to be taken care of, but again, we looked at that event as something that could have risen to the level of needing additional support, whether that's resources or whatever that may be, and how does emergency management then fold into a response like that? So after that, even though we weren't part of that response, we still had an after action review with law enforcement and fire operations and kind of talked about how does emergency management get involved, what are things we can bring to the table, how do we communicate during an emergency and coordinate any processes that need to happen. The result of this is we ended up creating some strong communication tools and established how we communicate from an emergency, whether it be emergency operations center, whether we don't have an emergency operations center and we're just helping support something that is taking place on scene. How do we communicate with IC in an effective way and not a cumbersome way and allow IC to really focus on the response? We also talked about different situational awareness tools. And so one of the things that came out of that, Serena and I now have access to West Pierce Fire's, they have an app that all the calls run through. And so we can have that situational awareness. And even if we don't get a call from IC, we could at least have some awareness ahead of time and start pre-planning in our minds what may need to happen, who we might need to call, and how to deploy certain things. The other thing that came out of that is it allowed us an opportunity to really show what emergency management can bring to the table in a response. Again, the whole idea is to really support the response and the incident commander and allow them to focus on operations. So we talked about things as far as public information and warning, evacuations, working with Red Cross and other partners, and some of those other things. Again, to really allow those battalion chiefs to focus on the fire itself, and we can help with some of those ancillary services. Next slide. Oh, perfect. So August 16th, just a couple weeks later, we had Fort Steilacoom fire. So after we had these conversations, we were really able to put this in practice real time. We were alerted. Serena was actually at the county for an exercise training. I was in the office, but we both had the app, so we were both able to see that there was a large brush fire burning. We could see that there was the notes on that call and that they were starting to deploy some evacuations. So we instantly got tied in. We got tied in with Sergeant Allwine, with the police department, and began communication with Unified Command. One of the best practices that came out of that was we were on a Zoom call with Unified Command. So I was in the office, she was in Tacoma at Pierce County Emergency Management, and Allwine was on the scene. And we were starting to talk through some things as far as, again, alert and warning, sending out evacuation messages. Do we need to open up the evacuation center? Some of those things. We're able to have those conversations real time, but also in a space to not be cumbersome to the response that is occurring. And so after that, some of the things that we supported was, again, facilitating some of those evacuation messages that went out. We opened up an evacuation center in coordination with the Clover Park School District and the Red Cross. We had a few families come through there, but we had a space that was out to eat, had some snacks, and was available. We also were able to supply rehab supplies to the scene, firefighters working that. And then following that, again, back to that evaluation process, we held a large after action review where we had multi agencies involved. So from Lakewood Water to Pierce County Emergency Management, school district, fire, law enforcement, all came together and we talked about all of these things as far as resource request process, alert and warning, evacuations, and it was a great process. So again, took something that happened August 6th, was able to learn from it, deploy a few things, and then was able to learn from those as well and further enhance our capabilities after Fort Silicon. Next slide.
So now we want to talk about our emergency management operational plan going into 2024. One of the things that we want to do is increase the capabilities of our DOC, so our Department Operations Center for West Pierce, and then the EOCs. And with that, what we are going to start doing is training our Emergency Operations Center staff and our Department Operations Center staff on ICS and what each position is, making sure that they are trained up to date on what ICS forms are. And Nathan and I have started with training our staff on what the coalition is, what it looks like, and how we would activate. And then continuing to update our comprehensive emergency management plan that is due for review in 2027. So just going through that plan and making sure that we have all of the tiers met and all of the requirements met for that plan, and giving ourselves plenty of time to work through that. Increasing staff's knowledge of workplace preparedness, so working with our emergency preparedness coordinator at West Pierce to make sure that all staff are prepared for an emergency for themselves. So under the desk kits, making sure that they know their evacuation routes. And then continued improvement of local information and warning capability. So University Place, Lakewood, and Silicon all have Code Red. And Nathan and I have been working with Code Red this year to ensure that within that system, there are shape files for all 3 jurisdictions in there. And what that would allow us to do is that in the event of an emergency, it allows each jurisdiction to have a backup and to be able to send an alert to the entire coalition if we need to. So we recognize that incidences can cross jurisdictional boundaries within our coalition, so between Lakewood, University Place, and Silicon. So having the shape files in there allows us to send one comprehensive message to the area that needs to be sent to. Lakewood has been approved for IPAWS, so the integrated public alert and warning system, and University Place and Silicon are working on their application. Once that is completed, we'll be able to go into Code Red and send an IPAWS message. With that, we have to do monthly tests, but really working with Code Red to ensure that we have those shape files correct. Is what we're working on right now.
For those who don't know what IPAWS is, it's like basically the messages that hit your cell phone.
Right. So it would send a wireless emergency alert to any wireless device. Right now, the way Code Red is set up is you have to sign up manually to get the message. This would allow us to go into our map, circle an area, and whether someone signed up for it, if they drive through it, they're going to get that alert on their phone. So we're pretty excited about building that.
The code red.
Code Red.
Provide ongoing citizen personal preparedness education. Again, that goes back to our emergency preparedness coordinator, Rachel, who does our community emergency response team training. And she's also at public events giving preparedness information out. So just ensuring that we're hitting the citizens and making sure that they are aware of how to be prepared for their household and their families as well. Increasing local emergency shelter capabilities. Do you want to talk about the things we're working on?
Yeah, so we recognize that, in an event of emergency, we may need to shelter, a large portion of our community for whether it be a short amount of time or a long amount of period of time. And so what we're doing is building out a plan that would incorporate, again, all of our jurisdictions, identifying some locations that would be able to support a shelter, identifying what that staffing structure would look like from each city, and what some of those core positions in a shelter team would look like. We've built some shelter go kits, which are basically admin boxes. They have a lot of office supplies, and they also have some drafts of task books or task sheets that we're continuing to work on. And then we've also developed a MOU from the fire district to be able to, once we identify a location who's willing to be a shelter location, we can sign an MOU with them ahead of time, memorandum of understanding. So we'll be able to build that out ahead of time and have that identified.
And then we are also continually reviewing our continuity of operations plan. Again, last year we did training on that, and that was more of a discussion-based training and making sure that the staff was just aware of what that plan was and what it looks like. Moving into 2024 and 2025, we'll start doing tabletops on that plan, and then moving up to functional exercise, so making sure that we're kind of following those steps of making sure that the staff is trained on what the plan is, doing tabletops on it, so having discussion, and then actually practicing that plan. And then continuing to foster new and existing relationships with our partners. So Nathan and I are continuously working with the Pierce County Department of Emergency Management, and we also work with our neighboring jurisdictions, so Tacoma, Puyallup, and the East Pierce Interlocal Coalition, working with them to ensure that we are all aware of what each other's plans are, participating in each other's trainings, because we do recognize that in a large incident, we would have to work together. And so just continuing to foster those relationships. And then monthly, we do hold a regional emergency management stakeholder meeting, so that has all of our different partners on there. Once a month, we update each other on what we're doing, and then see if there's any kind of gaps that we can fill for each other or any assistance that's needed between all of those agencies.
Perfect. So we already, some of the current projects that in planning efforts, we already kind of talked about the emergency shelter plan. We're also participating in Pierce County reunification plan. They have 6 work groups, and reunification is essentially when something large happens, there's a large group of folks affected, whether it be a school shooting, a train accident. Patients may be going to the hospital, they might be leaving the scene, and so this is a plan to set up a reunification center and be able to track who's involved, and also be able to then link family members who are wondering where their loved ones are, and have that meeting location. So they have 6 work groups. We're currently involved in 3 different work groups: the core planning, reunification planning, and family assistance center. Pierce County, another one of their large planning efforts, involves Mount Rainier and any sort of eruption of that, fallout events. So we're involved with their planning efforts with that. And then the latest one that we've really been working on, again, kind of following Fort Silicon, is trying to get a good understanding of what resources we have locally that we can request before we need to go to the county level. And we know that Public Works and each of the jurisdictions have a lot of resources, from chainsaws to dump trucks. So we've worked with all 3 of the Public Works, had sit-down meetings, identified what their 24/7 callback process is, what some of their equipment is, and been able to create a list of that equipment. So if something happens and the incident commander says, we need a dump truck, but we need some chainsaws, we know how to request them and where to request them from. And with that, I think that was, did I hit everything with that?
Yeah, just the other thing that I would say with our public works inventory project, and with most of the training exercises that Nathan and I do, is we're also using this as an opportunity to have FaceTime with all of the staff in each jurisdiction, so they know who we are and we know who they are, so when they get a call from us asking for assistance on resources, they know why we're asking, what the point is. And so with that and with all of the trainings that we do, not just for us to have FaceTime together, but for fire to have FaceTime with LPD or the public works staff, and just making sure that we're all connected in that way before a large incident happens. And I think that that will strengthen the work that we do when we do have to set up an emergency operations center.
So we know that we have essentially four different jurisdictions that we're responsible for, two cities, the town, and then the fire department itself. And we want to make sure that we have these trainings and exercise developed, that they're working towards a common goal, that they're done equitably across the coalition, and that we're able to really track that progress. So from that, we created a multi-year training and exercise plan. It's really based off about 3 years. The first year, we break down what training, and by a month, and almost the day of when we plan on doing that training for the jurisdiction. It gives us a very close view of what we're doing for that year and how we're gonna roll out in trainings and exercises. The next 2 years are broken into what the training is and kind of what quarter we're hoping to accomplish that. We've built in an ability to have some flexibility because real world incidents happen that may change priorities and things like that. So every year we reevaluate that year, then we take that more granular view and break things out into the month and start planning specifically when those training exercises occur. Some of the things we've done so far, starting in 2024, is we just recently in March held a public information officer tabletop exercise. This was an awesome exercise. We had representation from all 3 jurisdictions, the Pierce County Sheriff Department, law enforcement, fire. Basically, it was a discussion-based exercise where we gave a scenario, really focused questions on how do we communicate effectively and work together on public information and warning across jurisdictions. Moving forward, end of April, we'll be hosting a TEACS cybersecurity course. This is in partnership with Texas A&M University. They have an emergency management program that's tied in with FEMA and offers these courses at no cost. So they're coming up to us. This is going to be open to not only our jurisdictions, but we've also invited some of our neighboring jurisdictions, whether it be IT folks and also some of those players that may be involved in the decision-making process if there's a cyber threat that occurs. So we're pretty excited for that course coming up. Another course we've partnered with some of our neighboring jurisdictions is to start bringing more ICS 300 and 400 courses. These are really more oriented on folks that will be filling EOC roles and gives them a better grounding of the incident command system and how that works. So we're going to be hosting the 300, 400, 300 is going to be next week. 400 class is going to be in May. But again, the opportunity to bring it more locally. The county offers it, other jurisdictions offer it. The more we can get it out there, not only helps our organization and coalition, but we also have other partners that are able to sign up for those courses as well. So we're really building that ICS knowledge across the entire region and helping support that. And then the last thing and the biggest focus as we move into 2025 is we'll be hosting multiple trainings, as Serena mentioned, focused on Emergency Operations Center. We're going to be starting from almost ground zero on explaining what an Emergency Operations Center is, what some of those roles are, how are you successful in the roles, what's a fully activated EOC kind of look like, and that will be done through multiple trainings throughout 2024, leading up to more of a full-scale exercise in 2025. And that's all we have, so happy to take any questions.
I have two.
Yeah.
For those that are unaware of the West Pierce Emergency website, when it came to the fire, down at Stiligan Park, how were the resources communicated, like the shelter and some of the other resources, how anyone that received like that evacuation, how they know about the shelter.
So that was just before we launched the site, actually.
Okay.
Yes, no, it was a great opportunity, to be like, this would have been awesome to deploy that, but we were just working through some of those processes. In the meantime, what we did with that was we focused on utilizing Code Red to push that message out, but also social media. And that also led into, as Serena mentioned, many folks don't have social media, so that's why we built it into our website. And we're working on pushing this website through, there was a recent incident that happened, the cold weather snap actually that happened. We had agencies share the coalition's website as part of that message to help spread that word.
When, does the West Pierce Coalition have any relation or training with the CERT team? Like in different jurisdictions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so our CERT coordinator is actually part of the emergency management division. Her sole job, like, is CERT and preparedness for our organization. So they are very well, in tune with one another. They are in offices next to each other.
So public awareness, can we get back to that? How are we going to get the word out? My neighbors tend to be in my age group, probably less computer savvy than I am. Some of them don't even have computers. How are we going to tell them what's going on? How are we going to educate them?
We have put that stuff in the newsletters too, like that people can actually read. And, with Code Red too, we did get the emergency database from South Sound 911. So we do have everybody's like landlines, right? Like to do a reverse 911.
Mhm.
So we are able to touch people that way who haven't signed up. But obviously, if you sign up, you get all of the messages that you want versus just emergency ones, right?
And right now, it's one of us finds out about it and walks the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the fire? What's still coming?
Yeah. Yeah, we do put things out in multiple mediums. We obviously do social media, which not everybody has. We have a community newsletter that goes out. The city of Lakewood also has their own community newsletter. So we're trying to push it in as many places as we can. And both the fire district and the city also have like email lists and email generators that, messages that they send out on a relatively regular basis. So we push it out as much as we can, but unfortunately, we can't knock on everybody's door.
Sure.
Yeah.
But in the case of the Fort Sullivan Park Fire, literally the police department did go door to door.
Yeah.
I was waiting for it.
I have a list of all the doors in my house who knocked on, it was a live list, and they would literally read out the addresses as they knocked on the door. The dispatch was all captured in the CAD call, computer in the dispatch call. I was actually the supervisor on the police side that was in charge of the police response to that for the first several hours. So we did literally go door to door, and that the scope of that evacuation grew over time as the fire moved and changed direction. So we had to constantly move our evacuation zone getting bigger and bigger, but the follow-on messages about evacuation, also, reunification or return to your residence, that was done through social media, almost exclusively.
Do you see a role for the volunteer in your EOC?
I think that that's something that we are working through. We do have our community emergency response team, and they have their own communication plan. They know when they need to activate, and that would be through Rachel. So right now, that's what we're leaning on, are those training volunteers. If we did need to ever activate and utilize our community, because they already have that communication plan. And most likely what we've talked about is using those volunteers within their own neighborhoods to send in their not a windshield survey, but to send in a damage assessment of their neighborhood to the Emergency Operations Center, and so far that's how we pictured that looking. That way we are not putting any of our community members at risk to try to get them to the Emergency Operations Center.
And I'm talking specifically to the EOC. I'm a retired emergency manager.
Okay.
And I'm ICS 1234, second chief, military executive. I would love to spend some time in the EOC where I can help out. So if you see something at that level ever, I mean, I know you're at the beginning phase with all of this, but it might be something to consider, because there is more than me out there.
Oh, absolutely, and I think in an incident like that, we're gonna have to, especially multi-operational period, pull whatever resources we can. The biggest thing is we wanna make sure they're vetted and part of the Washington volunteer system, and that's why we are focusing at CERT as one of our first go-tos for volunteers. And we've worked on also training them on our shelter team as well, and understanding the process of that can incorporate them on that.
How many people are employed with you guys? More than just two. So it's 3 o'clock this morning. So at 3 o'clock this morning, there's an emergency, you're gonna get the phone call?
We're at,
Well, typically, it's, emergencies are scalable, right? Like police and fire are gonna get the initial call.
But
And when it-
if you need help, you're gonna call them.
Yeah.
So who's getting the phone call?
Yeah, it's the three of us.
I have a couple questions. You mentioned the cold snap and how, we're able to help serve the community through resources for that. Is there an anticipation of being ready for summer heat and having cooling centers? Is that within your realm?
yeah, so what we've done not only through this last cold snap, but the warms, heat dome-ish, it was a few days, over this last summer, is identify some of those community centers that are gonna be open regardless and utilize them. So Lakewood, the YMCA has been a great partner where they, regardless of if you pay for a membership, you can come in for that. We utilize the libraries as well. We do have a adverse weather plan and some trigger points as to when we would activate and staff up a warming center or a cooling center. So it just depends on where it falls, but even if it doesn't fall on that, we're still working on some of those resources. We've been able to get, cooling kits out, to our crews, like water bottles or heat blankets, so they can distribute out. We're in communication again with Pierce County, Homeless Coalition, and multiple other organizations that are working through that process. So if any needs happen, we're able to quickly, navigate.
Okay, great. And then my second question, is about the West Silicon Fire. I know, you were able to reach out to, Washington Department of Natural Resources to get support, bulldozers, helicopters, and that sort of thing. Is that part of the future plan as well? Do they have a seat at the table on this coalition to make sure that they can be pulled in for help as needed?
There's actually a new state, the legislature had approved some funding for that, and so we are actively working to sign a contract with the DNR.
Okay.
Just for just that,
Just for that.
so that we can call them in times of need. And in fact, they did not charge us for that. Because that bill had just been it had just passed in early July, and they hadn't gotten the word out that it was a thing yet. So when we called, they came and they did.
Great, that was a great effort across the board to get things taken care of quickly and save the property. Thank you.
There is one organization that I didn't mention, but, maybe you guys are already working with them. But Living Access Support Alliance, also known as LASA, they just opened up a hygiene center as well as they're working on a cooling center, so that would be a great connection too.
Thanks for bringing that up. I just met with the Little Church on the Prairie and learned of that organization. So it's on my to-do list to reach out to them and start some conversations.
It's on our board, so.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to have more conversation. Right. No more questions? Okay,
Thank
thank you so much for your time.
Um. Preston, City Council.
Hello.
Hi.
So, we at the city council had, a retreat last Saturday, which was the first time I had a chance to participate in that, a biannual event. And in there, we talked about our goals and vision and, sort of what we're targeting for the next couple of years for the city as far as priorities. And one of the things we did is we reaffirmed our commitment to public safety as one of our top priorities. So that's going to continue to be on our radar for what we're focused on. We also talked a lot about improving the downtown area, as we call it, and establishing a park in the downtown area, which would be exciting for those of us who've been here a long time to see how that can all come together and as that space becomes accessible to more people. And the last thing is looking forward to the end of the month. We have Parks Appreciation Day coming up on the 27th. Where we're looking for volunteers to come out with everyone to go help clean up our parks. So, there's a couple of ones that we're focused on. Slocum Park obviously is the big one, but Springbrook Park as well. And I think American Lake and Midtown Parks. Any questions? Thank you.
West Pierce Fire Rescue.
Yes. So in March, we responded to over 1,500 calls for service. So far from January to March, we've had from this year to last year, we've had 6% increase in calls this year. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but, but it's definitely an interesting thing and something that we're gonna keep our eye on.
Although that increase, that medical,
Most of our calls, about 85%.
so most of the increase would be in that
Yeah. CERT 50 was taught in March, so our 50th CERT class, that was pretty significant milestone for us. And at this point, I think we have over 800 people who have CERT, or who have gone through that training, which is pretty phenomenal over the last 12 years. Over 13 years. So, we're nearly done with the programs that we do in the school, so we only have 3 schools left, and that's between Lakewood and University. I think we have 1 up there and 2 down here. So that's going well, and we're just preparing for our summer outreach season with all of the events that are coming. So that's some highlights in my. I didn't know I was giving a report today. That's what I came up with.
You're pioneering a program, using, essentially a pickup. To,
Oh, the squad?
yeah, how's that going?
It's going really well. So for those who don't know, we have squads, or like a smaller vehicle. They're a brush truck, so they do have water on them. And those are called, like when we get called to things that don't seem as urgent as, like, you know, maybe where I would think is urgent. But we still have to send some vetting. We still have to, you know, vet out what the issue is. And so we'll send a squad, which has 2 people on it, not 3. It's a smaller resource. And so they pick up a lot of the calls that we were sending big fire engines to, and we don't have to send big fire engines, and they're ready for when another call that needs that bigger resource. So that's been very successful. We have 2 squads now. We have 1 down here in Lakewood and 1 in the first people.
Are you going to expand that program, or?
Well, I think that was the expansion, right? Like, so we went from 1 to 2. So we just implemented the second one this April. So yeah, very successful. So it's definitely taken some calls off of those bigger.
The second innovation you refined was diverting some of the medical calls to nurse.
Yes.
How's that?
Has Karen coming to you guys? Okay. Okay, we might need to see if we can get her to come and talk to you guys. That has also been very successful. So she goes to folks who call 911 a lot. So oftentimes they don't necessarily need 911. They need another resource. They need, they need healthcare resource, or they need transportation to the doctor, or some other thing that's not necessarily in 911. And so she, works with these patients and gets them the right help. So, and puts them into, programs that will work for them. I have actually utilized her personally. I have a sister who has MS, and so we were just having to call all the time, and I was like, what? She lined us up with a program that is just phenomenal and amazing, and so just her wealth of knowledge. She actually has a healthcare background, and that's what she did in the hospital system, is that she, got people to the right places. So, she can speak to that program much more eloquently than I can, and so I think maybe getting her to come and talk to you guys would be great.
Again, is that program going to be expanded? Is it consider it successful?
Yeah, it's definitely successful. So we're basically kind of like, you want to make sure that things are set up right before you add more resources. So this is she started in 2022. So this is, going on her third year. So yeah, so those are things that we're talking about. It's not in this levy cycle, but potentially down the road.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Are you, as an organization, continuing this year with your wild and urban interface training?
Yeah.
Like Cambridge, Camden?
Absolutely. We've, some of the tabletops that we've done with Serena and Nathan are actually, that is the area that we've just been, kind of, because we know that's a risk, right? And it's a risk that's on a border, and there's a lot of complications that go with that, right? So we've actually done 2 tabletops. The PIO tabletop that we did was around that, and we did a larger tabletop that was also so we are planning. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but
No,
this is on our radar.
There's a lot of people there, right?
Absolutely. Any other questions?
My turn?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Brian Markert. I am, for the next 3 weeks, the acting captain of the patrol division while Captain Johnson is away at school. And I'm here to be serving or standing for Assistant Chief Unford. The first thing I'd like to mention is you all are probably aware, saw in the media, that back at the beginning of March, the legislature passed an initiative that modified the police pursuit laws as they were currently written, to, for lack of better, loosen up some of the restrictions, allow police, lower the legal standard to engage in the vehicle pursuit for reasonable suspicion. Many of the other restrictions or control measures are still in place as far as supervisory approval, the expectation of officers will, and this has been our policy for almost the entire time I've been on law enforcement officer, which is almost 30 years now. You have to take into account things like traffic conditions, the crime that's involved, the risk to the public at large. And the big thing is that the risk to the person getting away has to outweigh the risk of it. So many of those things are still in place. It just makes it a slightly easier for us to chase some, degrees of crime that we could not more recently. Right now, the department's working on policy updates. Once those are finalized, they'll get put out to officers through training, and we'll make sure that everybody is fully aware of what the restrictions and expectations are that they do under the new standards involved with it. So,
Are you just going to revert to the old policy that was in place 2 years ago?
I mean, it will be similar to that, but it will take into account the additional restrictions that the law encompasses. So, there's some things codified in the law that were not per se part of our policy. Things like mandates for training. We abided by many of the things that were in the law prior to that, unintentionally just through our training practices. But there are certain things in the law that we will have to account for in the new policy. So it's not going to go back to exactly the way it was. Because over the life of the Lakewood Police Department, our pursuit policy has changed. When I first started in 2004, it was very liberal. And pretty much if somebody failed to stop when you attempted to, make a traffic stop on them, then you can engage in the vehicle pursuit. And over time, we further restricted that. First, we got away from allowing pursuits for just traffic infractions, like let's say you didn't use the turn signal, you went through a red light and you ran, you need to try to drive away, and we would chase for that. We limited it down and down and down. Just to account for the fact that, you know, you look at the reason why someone tries to leave versus what they catch up to and what they actually were involved in. You know, we saw that infractions weren't leading to, in many cases, like some sort of unknown violent crime that we were not aware of. Also, the risk to the public at large, we don't know why somebody who let us stop for a turn signal violation, we don't know why they're running. So do we know what the risk of it? Can we really balance the risk of the community versus the risk of capturing this person? So over time, our pursuit policy became more and more restrictive. But it'll be similar to that, but it will still have many of this, it'll still have all the RCW restrictions and requirements that are part of the law. Just going to basically reduce the threshold for us to engage in that. And from our statistics, our vehicle pursuits have remained consistent over time. From the start to now, and I forget, the last stats I saw, I forget exactly how many years they were, but it was in excess of 5 years. It was about 3 or so a month. What we did see explode after the law changed to restrict pursuits was our eludes. People who would run from us went through the roof. It went up by over 300%. Because people knew that we could not chase them. So they were more, and I would, you know, as an anecdote, I would pull up to a red light behind a car and the person would give me the finger out the window and just drive off through the red light just because they could, and they knew that I or other officers could not chase them. So that is what actually went, you know, the increase we saw was the eludes, which when people run from the police, they continue to drive recklessly for a period of time after that. They don't just stop. So the fact that people are running away from it without even being prompted to, that was what we saw as an actual increase to public safety at large, because we had more cars running from it for unknown reasons, especially stolen cars. Because back in the past, if you attempted to stop a stolen car, oftentimes they would just pull over. And they would allow them, you know, they would allow themselves to be arrested. With the new law, they decided they didn't do that anymore, so they all ran. So I think that's where we'll see a reduction. I anecdotally I'm a swing shift patrol sergeant. It seems to me like people are pulling over for us more, and our lead numbers, just anecdotally, I don't have numbers to support it, but in my observation from listening to my officers on the radio, it seems like people are pulling over more readily now than they have even just last month. So we'll see if those numbers hold.
You have a date you expect the new policy training to be done so that it's not in effect for you?
Oh, it'll be before June, which is when the new law takes effect. It takes effect 90 days after passage, so that will be in early June, so it will be done before that. Yeah.
When someone eludes, is there any circumstances they have to answer for? I've wondered about this. People can now not be pursued and they're gone. There's no contact with the police department with the registered owner.
Right. We have had success in identifying people who are, like, for lack of better, repeat offenders. You know, you might sit up next to a car and see the person. You might recognize that person. Might be a known offender, somebody who we've dealt with in the past. For instance, we had a subject who we wanted for a felony assault, and every time we tried to stop him, he would drive off. Now we were allowed to actually pursue that individual, but he was very slippery and got away from us a bunch of times. Every time he does that, that's an additional charge. We can go back and charge that person with what we call felony elude. So we have had some success. You know, you seize a vehicle, or let's say a vehicle after a pursuit crashes, or somehow they pull over and they run away from it. We impound the vehicle for a search warrant. Maybe we're able to find paperwork inside that helps us identify the driver. So we have had some success with follow-up on, especially repeat offenders who oftentimes are driving the same car recklessly that they did the last 4 or 5 times. stop them. And oftentimes you'll see that, people who, engage in felony and elude, they don't just do it in Lakewood, they run from Tacoma, they run from Pierce County, or they run from Charlotte, and you, like what I direct my officers to do is if let's say it's a stolen car. I ask them to attach that report to the original stolen report, so we have a running track record of this stolen car ran from it 7 times in the last 10 days, and it ran from all these different agents. That way we have sort of a running total that shows that the people who stole that car likely are engaged in this dangerous behavior as well.
My follow-up question to that is, you mentioned the reason you pursue has changed so much since day one. How do you feel like that affected, or are there stats on the infractions that result in the address or in the arrest of somebody that's more important than the infraction? As you said, maybe stop so many infraction turns
Right.
pullovers because they didn't result in great arrests. But what are the arrest rates when people are being arrested or pursued for smaller infractions? That happens.
Well, we don't chase people for infractions anymore, so, you know, and that's kind of a blind stat because we don't have that data because we don't stop those people, because when they run away, we let them go.
So you only get a lucky warrant on somebody who did pull over when they're not stopped.
Yeah.
Well, license plate scanners have been up now for a few months. Are you seeing a drop in stolen cars wandering around, or?
There has been it appears that there has been a drop in stolen cars compared to April of last year. Our stolen car numbers are down significantly. In the neighborhood of about 60% from last April. Overall, property crimes, things like burglary, stolen vehicles, and robberies, from last year are down about almost 40%.
Can you adjust the clock cameras to point into a different direction?
Yes.
Okay. Does that happen periodically so that the people that are stealing cars don't get used to where those cameras are?
I would liken flock to kind of a tripwire system in that we put them in places where they're likely to see people who, you know, are driving around in cars, and flock can be used for things other than stolen vehicles. If we, let's say we have a murder suspect, it will alert, and that vehicle gets flagged, then it will alert on that. We've had other, you know, we've had felony assault suspects where we can put information in the system that will allow us to see where they're driving around. So we're able to see, okay, this person traveled this general route, this general time of the day in these directions, and they're coming in and out. And that can help focus efforts, but yeah, they can be adjusted. And that is something that from the inception of the system, we were looking at, okay, we're going to try them out in these locations. And if they show to be of value, we'll either leave them there, or maybe we'll determine that, okay, this camera is not really working out for us. It's not capturing the data we expect it to, so maybe we'll relocate it to another place.
Are there more than one cameras at an intersection, or are there two?
It depends on intersection. Some intersections are set up so they can capture, you know, multiple directions.
Okay.
Or direction of travel. Other ones are not. It depends on the traffic volume at the intersection, and the design of the intersection, whether it's a 4-way intersection versus a 2-way versus a 3, you know, 2 intersections.
Thank you.
When we talked about that, I was told there's a Pierce County interagency group that focuses on progressive driving, progressive drivers. And so,
Yes, State Patrol normally leads those efforts. They have, basic, for lack of better, dedicated troopers that do that. Times, other agencies, we have various things, everything from the street race for emphasis, which is normally led by Tacoma Police Department, because they have kind of the biggest stake in that game. We have joined with them, and other Pierce County agencies have joined with Tacoma in that effort over the last several years. Usually it starts to ramp up during the spring and summer when the streets are nice and dry and the street racers can get the traction they need to engage in that kind of activity. So we do partner with other agencies on efforts like that. Everything from DUI emphasis to aggressive driving to street racer activity, stuff like that.
I was in a talk by Tom, who's chief of Yeah,
Thomas Hill.
so, and he was talking about I thought he said a Pierce County led group that was focusing on aggressive and high speed.
They had, I think it was last weekend or the weekend before, they had some sort of emphasis. And most of them down, yeah, or in the county. Yeah.
Is that effective? Do you think that has a long-term effect?
I don't really know, honestly.
Yeah, just,
I mean, it's something that, when it happens, you're hoping that the people that you stop get the message and that any media reports or social messaging regarding it lets other people know about the effort and that they, maybe they don't want to do it. That's kind of the goal. It's kind of a two-pronged approach. You get the people who are engaged in it the day of, hopefully your message gets out that this is not acceptable behavior.
and the second question is the cameras that they put out that record your speed, says you're over.
Right.
Effective or just for people like maybe the flight with them.
I know that there are some jurisdictions in Pierce County who have them deployed and, as far as, number of citations issued, very effective. I think there's sort of a delayed reaction with those cameras because until the first ticket shows up in the mail,
Yeah,
you don't know that you might not know you did something wrong.
well, I was talking about ones like on,
The ones that display the speed.
Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah,
Okay, not the one that sent you a ticket, but the one that, just a reader board.
just the reader board.
I slow down. When I,
Yeah.
like the one on Bridgeport Way, as you do the Fred Meyer, I occasionally might have to come into that, stretch of road going slightly too fast, and I can see the sign light up, I slow down.
But I think that's common.
I watch other drivers, and I mean, maybe people don't slow down to, 30 miles an hour, but people definitely hit their brakes. I definitely, every time I
go
go
from 50 to 40, that.
Yeah, I can say fairly confidently that I am not someone who's blast through there and be like, forget it, I don't care. I always see brake lights come on.
And then Alan, I would toss out, there's another effect. My kids are monitoring my speed. And sure, that might affect me, and it does, but
Yeah,
they're being made aware of the speed limit
Yeah.
before they ever drive. So I feel like that's a little programming that's good for the environment of the kids.
Have they signed a contract for the new cameras yet, or is that still in the works? New
The,
speed cameras?
I believe a contract has been signed, but, there was an email that came out recently on it. I don't know the final resolution or what exact stage in the process they're at.
Question back on the
Yeah.
news. When you have someone who lives in the city, can you load that into the block system so that around the city, those cameras are keeping an eye out for that person? So instead of pursuing them, you know that they've come to a stop somewhere, and you guys have a team.
Yeah, I mean, we have there's a search, and a search application within Slack, and you can set up, and we can add information to the system that allows us to send us messages when we see a car that we're looking for.
So the capabilities there.
It is. Yeah. And it's everything from license plate to, you could be looking for a white Honda Accord. Right. When you start looking, the more generic you get, the higher degree of false positives you're gonna be sifting through more data. And it also gets, license plates or like it reads from license plates from, if it's license plate from another state is stolen, it'll come up and you'll just, you can click a button that says wrong state to flush that, okay, that was a wrong plate, it wasn't a bona fide thing.
Is there a place, that a citizen can go and look and see we've had occasions in our neighborhood when multiple police officers have showed up and had somebody handcuffed and on the ground and stuff. Is there a way for us to go in and find out what's going on?
There's no portal or app that would allow you to, see that, like, okay, I saw the cops down the street and log in or click on a website and say, okay, that's what was going on. But there really isn't that capability.
there's a site like, Chicago, on Facebook, I guess it's on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's so,
Yeah, there are some social media sites, either on Instagram or Facebook, there are community-run websites, one of them is called the Conference File, that, and it encompasses more than Tacoma. But it basically is like, hey, did you guys see what was happening at like 74th in South Tacoma Way? Does anybody know what happened? And invariably, some people are like, oh yeah, I saw, I was getting my, pumping gas in my car, and this guy who decided running down the street, pointing a stick at somebody, so we got arrested. But if you're relying on eyewitnesses and social media and, kind of in some cases, your, imagination of the people who decided to answer the question.
You can follow fire responses on Full Point if you download that app.
What is that called?
Full Point.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that as well.
Any more questions?
Yeah. It's like you mentioned, Pulse Point reminded, Lakeville Gardens had 13 units respond the other day.
I do not.
That's huge. Yeah, it was all.
I didn't hear about it,
all different
so
kinds of units.
maybe it was like a false alarm. I don't
And all the vehicles passed our store going both directions to the units and both.
Was it all fire or?
Yeah, well, Pulse Point reports fire, ambulance, and not police, right? Ambulance, right? Probably the history stuff. But comment on the police department. If anybody here hasn't taken up the opportunity to ride along, I did that with Officer John Frazier. And the flock camera questions, I mean, it's fantastic watching that. In fact, and you get arrested that day, but yeah, the information pops up on the screen while you're driving. And you asked about directional. There was one that got a picture of the car front and back, verified that the license was the same front and back. And it's just fascinating to know that there's basically AI, their systems working, and the police are not track everything like that. And just to be able to spend those hours talking with an officer, we just draw a basic tour of every place that's of any interest and really get an inside feeling for all the stuff we're talking about here. It was really well worth it. One-on-one, no rush to come up with questions and talk about what we see and the systems work. Get to wear a vest if you want to.
I would honestly agree with that. I would say if it's serving on a committee like this, I think would be extremely valuable to have that, that perspective to be able to, the things that we discussed with the police, perspective, be able to say, okay, now I understand what they're talking about. When you're talking about use of force policy, I understand what that means. When you're talking about stolen vehicle enforcement, I understand what that means. When we're talking about working with our community departments like West Pierce, we understand that when, when the police go to a call, the fire department is probably got to go to it too, or the fire department might be at a call and request the police to be there for some public safety reason. Which is things that sometimes they show up and they're like, this isn't a fire problem, or this isn't even a medical problem, this is a mental health problem. So that kind of slides it over onto our plate. And we might have a situation that we go through that we initially think is, okay, this is a police problem. Well, really, it's not. Maybe this person that is having some sort of medical emergency. So we hope to better understand this. We know how to recommend.
It's true, because now when you have time to ask your questions one-on-one, it was somebody who isn't having to answer to the public forum. Also, just asking Officer Frazier, what do you think about this? What about that topic? And you can talk about the things that are of interest to him to share with us, as opposed to us asking questions. Probably a lot of things. There are a lot of things that an officer deals with every day and says, why does the community work this way? What's your position with the city council or with the your influence with the council or with the Chamber of Commerce? And it's like, well, yeah, because he doesn't have anybody in his car that talk to about his issues in local schools. So it was a great.
My question actually was from the officer that I did my ride along with maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
A month ago. Yeah.
I'm just gonna jump down to the reports from the board members, and then we'll jump back up to youth council to talk about the right piece, because that is valuable information that you're sharing. And Teresa and I both did a ride along on a Saturday night on the same night, and it was very beneficial, very informative, and I think that immediately I took away they thought we were on the right along to give them a report card and to judge them on their job.
Joanna did not let them know. Did you tell them that we were coming, or they thought that we were going to?
Give them a report
Assess
card
them.
and assess them at their job, so
I
they.
took them that you were PSAC members and they had to take it.
So it was actually very good for, our officers to learn, like, no, we're actually here to support you and see what you guys are faced with every day. And just to see the relief off of their shoulders was pretty interesting to see. But they were unaware and didn't know much about, the Public Safety Advisory Committee. And so it was really nice to be able to share, what we do here with them. And it was a full night for us. I mean, I feel like we saw everything. I got to, at least my ride along. I got to see, a de-escalation situation, where someone just had it out just because, there's someone riding in a police car, and I just can't even believe like the courage or the nerve that, this gentleman has just to like walk up and start cussing out an officer was very interesting. So I got to see that and, how the police service the public and then support and how they deal with, pursuits. And, it was a really great experience. So I echo and second what Todd said. If there's anyone that hasn't had a ride along, it was really good. And I was actually, both were encouraged to do another one in the summer because they said it's more busy, but I thought it was a full night for us, so.
Tacoma used to have a citizens academy and it's a week long, doing every night. But then at the end, you got to go for a ride along. And I thought, oh yeah, this would be, they're gonna, get somebody to ride around. Help shake someplace and they'll say, that's it. But we left the police station, drove about 4 blocks and he said, don't get excited. And he took his gun out, laid it in his lap and pulled into a 7-Eleven. I went, I don't think this is what this is. And just before it ended, we were downtown, a little incident happened, we got locked and shot, and he said, use that if you have to protect yourself, and we got out of the car. So it was an interesting night.
Well, actually, we'll be running Citizens Academy this summer.
And you thought that was something. Now you actually get to do VBOC. I'm just saying, emergency vehicle operation course. That's awesome. They're one-upping, leveling up.
That could scare an officer.
Yeah, so Citizens Academy runs, 1 night a week for
I think it's 8 weeks.
I think it's 8 weeks. And then there's a couple of special sessions, and it's a lot of classroom. You get presentations from, our neighborhood policing unit, our criminal investigations unit, forensics, the Marine Services unit, the special response team, all the different patrol, all the people, who have a part in this police department, they tell you what they do. And then there's a part where they they take out to do a skills course, get to, drive a police car. And then we have like a judge use of force virtual reality system we have now that helps places them in realistic scenarios virtually where they have to basically, assess the situation and respond to it appropriately. And they also fire up that system as well during the Citizens Academy. So I don't have the particular date off the top of my head, but it starts, I believe, in June.
Sorry, I'm waiting for my computer to catch up. I do have the dates. If my computer will catch up. It starts June 11th and runs through the 30th of July. So that the applications and notifications are going to be going out pretty soon.
Yeah.
For people to sign up and try to do the class.
What
I
was
think
that
we're
about
going to
applications? What'd you say about applications?
They'll be going out. They'll be going up on social media soon. I think we're limited to 20. It's 20 or 25. I feel like it's 20. So if you are interested, you want to get applications in quick. And I will make a note to myself, let you guys know when they're open.
Please.
How many openings are there?
20, I think maybe 25, but I think it's 20.
One experience, and I don't mean to like take away your glory, but it was awesome. I was very jealous. part of the experience with the ride along is, I actually had to be dropped off at a fire station. And so the hospitality and, the support that the fire station gave me was absolutely amazing, because I did not know how long I was gonna be sitting outside. And so they brought me in and, I mean, it's a Saturday night in the middle of the night, so I was a little terrified, but, that was a really great experience to see the fire station on the inside and, you know, what they do on downtime and to talk to them a little bit. Teresa got to be in front of the pursuit. And so her officer actually was able to deploy the spike strips. And so it was his first deployment.
It was
in
his
8
first-
years.
Oh, I thought it was his first time.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
it was,
Oh, okay, yeah.
but he was with like the police station for 8 years. And that was, yeah, so that was pretty exciting to him. So.
Who was your first year?
Me?
Yeah.
Officer people.
Okay.
It's so weird, so when I did it was quite a nice job, so yeah, I was invited back.
Oh.
Sometimes if it's really dull, we'll invite you back for a second try.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We call it the writer's curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing, right?
Right.
Yeah, it was also very eye-opening to see, someone on fentanyl be able to operate at a high speed of vehicle, and the next moment to be passed out in the back of the police car was like unbelievable. And we got to see him at the hospital, and it was just unreal to think about that, so I highly recommend it. All right. Any other? Any other reports from a board member?
Before you bump to that, hey, Brian?
Yeah.
Do you think you could speak to, you told them that you were acting captain, but, can you speak to the changing titles that you have?
Oh, yes. So our rank structure here at Lakewood Police Department is officer, sergeant, they're first line supervisors. And then we have, what used to be called lieutenants, second line supervisors, and they supervise divisions. They're in charge of like the patrol division, the patrol specialty division, the criminal investigation division. Their title has now changed to captain. And then we have the assistant chief and then the chief of police. And that was basically done in order to align their title more closely with what most other departments do, and the fact that they're in charge of division. A lot of places have lieutenants as well, but they would be sort of wedged between a sergeant and a captain. So they just changed the title of from lieutenant to captain to more accurately reflect their role and responsibility as, you know, in comparison to other departments. Yeah, so we don't have lieutenants anymore.
And we used to have a game that, a few years ago before we started losing officers. Is that coming back? I noticed that there seems to be a lot more tagging going on.
So we have a special operations, we have two things, we have a gang team, which is a group of officers. It's sort of an additional duty where they focus on gang activity. They're pointed in that direction by the sergeant of the special operations unit. And they focus on that, that's sort of their specialty. Then we have a special operations unit, which, they handle drug crimes, street crimes, and repeat like violent offenders, like violent violations. So it's, they used to focus very heavily on narcotics. Half of that was, you know, the laws were different in the state, back when LPD was started. They also focused very heavily on like street sex solicitation, prostitution. But that was a significant problem, like on Pacific Highway and the Ponders area. So over time, their focus has shifted. Now they basically focus on repeat offenders, violent offenders, things of that nature. But they help kind of orient the gang team towards focusing on gang activity.
So what kind of quantity or percentages do we have of sergeants and captains
Of what?
in the department, sergeants and captains?
We have the chief, one assistant chief of police, 7 captains, if I'm doing the math correct. Well, there's, oh, no, that's right, you're right, 5, because, I'm sorry, there's 7, our radio identifiers are single digit for command staff, so it's Lakewood 1 is the chief, like 2 is the assistant chief, and then it goes in order of seniority. So we have 5 captains, sergeants, we have 6 patrol sergeants. We have a traffic sergeant, we have a sergeant in charge of every different investigative unit, so special assault, property crimes, major crimes. We have a neighborhood police and sergeant. We have a court services sergeant who supervises courtroom security over at Lakewood Municipal Court, and the court services officers over there.
I think that makes 15. I think we have 13 sergeants. I'm close.
Like I said, they're first line supervisors. So they generally, a patrol sergeant will have anywhere between the minimum staffing is 5. 7 is full staff, and we have a 1 squad right now that has 8 officers. Just because that's the way that's just the way it shook out. And then the other investigative units, like our special ops unit, which is still not fully staffed, only has a couple of investigators assigned to it right now, but they generally are, the specialty units are between 3 and 5 personnel assigned to them. Generally. And staffing wise, just as a quick update, we are fully staffed. We actually just had an officer who is departing Lakewood to lateral over to another agency in Pierce County, but we are looking to, we have an active entry level list, and we have an active lateral candidate list, so we're looking to hire somebody as a backfill off of one of those lists here in the near future. Yes, Pete Johnson. I'm his acting replacement for the moment. He's at we have Captain Pete Johnson. He's at the in Quantico, Virginia, at the FBI Academy, going through the FBI National Academy, which is a professional development school for command staff, law enforcement personnel. Kind of goes over best practices, with the network with other leaders from across the country. Basically, sort of like our master's program in law enforcement leadership. But they'll be there for the next 10 weeks.
It's 14. It's good for count. 14.
Is the plan to send all captains to
It is, and we can apply to send people to it, but the application process is, they have to balance, the needs of all the agencies in America, because of course everybody wants to pretty much go to it. So like Assistant Chief John Frazier, he just finished a 6-month fellowship with the FBI in DC.
You said that wrong.
Unford, I'm sorry. What did I say?
Frazier.
Frazier, okay. John.
I mean, he probably doesn't mind.
Assistant Chief John Unford just came back recently from a 6-month fellowship with the FBI, so he does not, he's not going to go to the National Academy.
Zorro had done it.
But that,
Zorro had done it.
yeah, Zarko has done it. Captain Allwine has attended as well. We have another lieutenant or captain who basically has applied to attend the school. It's sort of one of the things that matters is like, okay, how many years till I retire do I want to do this when I'm in the sunset of my career? So, but there are plans for other captains to attend the school.
I'm gonna jump up to youth council.
Dylan, it looks like you're the only one left. Did you have anything to share for the youth council?
I think they saw him sign on. His name.
Nothing new, he said. No, he's here.
Okay.
He's right there. Yep. Nope, he said nothing new. Thank you.
Unfinished business. Public safety survey.
I guess by default, I'll speak to that. We didn't meet. The big thing is, for me anyway, I have looked, I could not find the results of the latest, citizen survey that the city recently conducted. And one thing we're supposed to do is to not duplicate some of those activities. So where can I find it? The latest I found is the 2022, was it 2020, the last survey? I mean, how do I access that in order for us to not duplicate what has been done?
Well, this probably isn't the best answer, but I know that I sent the link to you guys, but I'm thinking that that window was probably closed. I think that was probably the only way is you would have had to click on the link and screenshot or print out the survey. I don't know, until they publish the results, I don't think there's,
Yeah, I'm not aware, but I would think we could contact,
do we know who's in charge of it?
by default, we'd ask John Campbell to.
I took a look at with the agenda package that was up to the city council. Well, talk there.
So it's there. So until we get the results and we can actually hold it in hand and dissect them out, I don't see how much headway we can make on developing a complimentary survey that's more specific to the public safety element. We have what the Mark did for us originally that we can incorporate. That happened soon after we met with Chief Smith. But there hasn't been much since then because we were waiting for this new survey and we continued to wait.
I thought you were having trouble finding the last public safety survey, but you're asking about the
community.
overall community. survey.
Right.
So yeah, that information John does have, and should be able to share, through it with council recently, in the last few weeks. So I think it's ready to be communicated out.
Okay, if that could be sent, that would be wonderful. And then, we'll gather and, see what we can do as far as moving forward.
Yeah, I think 2 weeks ago, Michael Vargas, the city manager, presented.
Okay, and then, truck and tractor day.
It was also more in-
Okay, so we're gonna wait for Mark.
I'm not sure, I don't want to obligate him, I think he, sort of, just wanted to get, you know, to be upset.
I'd say it's a very well attended event. It's grown over the years.
So both those items probably should stand your unfinished business.
New business.
The next meeting.
One thing I was hoping, the chief, Humphrey is going to be here. I've been looking at the police sites of Palmer University, College, Pierce County, and they do much more, reporting the statistics than Lakewood's doing. Right now, Lakewood has got it reports the results on a weekly basis. But it doesn't give the context. So if you say, oh, well, they have 49 calls, or, like, here's the report. But what is the context of that development? Increase or decrease or what it's like? And it also says, to see the statistics, refer to the city website. When I go to City of Lakewood's website, then I see last year's statistics. But again, it's in a different format, and there's no comparison. So I keep asking, I'm glad they're reporting falls, and total number of arrests, traffic accidents. But I want to know, okay, what is the thing? And, we started doing this, what is the plan, are you going to fill it out to receive?
The weekly summary does include the increases or decreases in categories. But it is, yeah, but there is a certain lack of context to some of that.
Yeah.
You don't know exactly what that is referring to. But the weekly summary does include raw numbers, it also includes increases in also service, violent crime, property crime, arrests, traffic stops, and collision.
Yeah, so is that the same as last year? Or are we increasing? University Place does it only every other week, but they just have a little very, very simple, but they have a trend there, so that would be useful. For the public to take a look at.
At one point, there was like a dashboard, with, like heat maps. At one point, there used to be a dashboard. that you could, like,
Dashboard seems to
see
be gone.
the data for individual calls for service. I don't know if that still exists for Lakewood or what happened with it.
That was never our thing, that was a city thing, so I cannot speak to that. You know, that the committee was asked to look at it.
They
You
seem
guys
to,
did a report on it and presented that to city council, and I don't think.
the
we
dashboard
ever heard that yet.
seems to have gone away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that Brent is working very hard to really revamp and update, you know, really improve the website and all of that. So that might be part of it, but she just felt that wasn't, meeting the needs, and has something in the works.
Okay,
To do that.
I might talk to John just to understand what did exist, what could exist. Because it was, I think, valuable for people to be able to look in and say what's going on in the neighborhood.
Right.
I think that's about it.
Oh, sorry, you did say, so, for next month, we've got community involvement with legislature and trying to just tap back into that truck and tractor day, because there will only be one meeting after that. So for whatever plans you guys want to come up with for truck and tractor day, you're coming down to the wire as of next month.
What is the date, October?
Truck and tractor is October 12th. So we will have, so at the next meeting, you'll want to have some kind of plans, you know, to ferment cement and make ferment that. Because you'll only have it.
Is there like a truck and tractor committee or
From my Parks Department.
internally?
Right, there was, and I think she said Martin was, there was, like, I have to
I was
go
on
over. Yeah, okay, I was just saying, go look, like, oh, like, there were three. Was it you and James?
No, it wasn't James.
Was
Was it Ken?
Mm-hmm.
I think Ken, I'm not sure.
I'd have to go back and.
Are we able to have like the subcommittee meet maybe monthly to get truck and tractor day going? Is that a possibility?
Really got one.
I'm not on it anymore.
How does the
I was
committee
on,
get
I was on
members?
that for last.
Yeah, you can reach out to Martin and ask him and kind of put the buttons here to try to get that moving. But, I am unclear exactly what you all want me to help you with for this community involvement legislature. What the plan for that is. I don't know what we need from.
What was the origin of the question?
Well, leave it to city council. Sorry.
I don't specifically recall, but I'm guessing it was, we encouraged folks in this committee to reach out directly to the state legislators to make their opinion known. The more voices they hear, the more likely they are to. But that said, the current session is now done. I think we were able to get some reform on the pursuit law.
I think ADUs brought part of that up too.
Yeah, it was a concern. That's something that was passed last year, right?
Yeah, I'm looking back at the notes from that and it's been unsuccessful getting citizen input regarding public safety. So I think that's why we were waiting for the business public safety survey. And then the town or the city wanted a way to encourage citizen communication with the legislature. So I think we're really needing that public survey, that business public survey. To go out again. And get that.
So I will be nothing with that. We'll keep the business survey on the agenda and try to keep you part of that. Right? Thank you.
And will you make, the recently, conducted survey available to us either by link or?
I mean, I won't make it, but I will do my best.
That's right.
The one that, if that information was available, that'd be good if maybe somebody could come and lead us through the results.
Yeah, if I could speak to that. Yeah, that's what we do.
And then to understand, like, what I'm able to do and what I'm not able to do, can I communicate with Martin outside of going through you to get the truck and tractor?
Directly, not like a whole committee. You know, you and Martin, just two of you, direct communication, yes, don't do a whole. committee.
Yeah, has to be less than 4.
And you, right, and you could always see me on them if you want me to keep them, so that we always have a record, but it's not a requirement either.
Okay. And then if I get with Martin, I'll adjourn in just a second, but if I get with Martin and let's say maybe there's like 3 committee members, but maybe we need to recruit another, is there a way for me to be able to do that, or do I need to do something here?
As long as you are sub-quorum, and you don't make decisions for the committee, but for the whole committee, you can do it. But if you go over a quorum, you need to make sure that it goes on committee meeting.
Okay.
So stay sub-quorum. And keep records.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Is there a
I
motion?
move we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank everybody.
Thank you, nice to meet you.
Good.